Dr. Jordan Peterson, the outstanding clinical psychologist, best-selling author, probably one of the most successful podcasters in the country. You probably saw him, heard him for the first time with Joe Rogan, came into the studio, and we just sat for a half hour. Here is part one of my interview. I think you're going to love it. And we begin with what's going on with kids in the workplace. They forgot how to act. Listen. It turns out new hires in 2023, according to a new study, are totally unprepared for work and life. Not saying everybody, but a lot of them. Psychologist and author Dr. Jordan Peterson joins us now. Dr. Peterson, great to see you.
Thank you very much.
So when this study popped up, we thought, you got to weigh in on this. They say that Gen Zers come in, they're sincere, but if they have no necessary instinct on what to do next, find them a lot sitting idly by waiting for instructions on what to do next. Does that make sense to you? Something about this generation that would have trouble being self-motivated?
Well, I think that if you set up an education system that's designed to do nothing but demoralize young people and to convince them that their ambition is dangerous and, well, even world-threatening for that matter, a manifestation of patriarchal oppression on the social front, and then a danger to the survival of the planet on the natural front, then, and you don't do anything to foster that ambition and to channel it into a manner that might be productive and to tell young people why their ambition might be useful, then you're going to get exactly that. So you hit what you aim at if you try hard enough, and the education system has been trying to demoralize people for 60 years. One of the things that really stuns me, I haven't been able to figure this out yet. I've been trying to talk to Republican governors about this. I cannot understand why conservatives have been daft enough to allow the faculties of education to retain their hammerlock on teacher certification for the last 60 years. It's insane.
You mean the criteria to get the certification and what's
exactly.
in it?
You have to be trained in a faculty of education to become a teacher. Why? They're the most woke element of the entire rotten university carcass, and they have the hammerlock on 50% of the state budgets. The conservatives are always complaining about the culture war. It's like, well, you handed all the young people to the faculties of education, right? Their research is terrible. It's low rate. Their students are generally very incompetent, comparatively speaking, on the academic front. It's foolish, and this is the outcome. It's not surprising.
And it's a way to work on the foundation. And when you have an RNC chair or a DNC chair, if you have an agenda, that's what to work on. Don't get Mr. and Mrs. Candidate elected. Start focusing on the direction you want the country in, and find out how to give people an education that will allow them to at the very least think, but not what to think.
Well, the left-wingers in the 1960s were far-seeing enough, the more radical types, to envision a decades-long march through the institutions, right? And one of their goals was the capture of educational institutions, and that's happened completely. And that's been absolutely abetted by conservatives who tend to get lost in the details. And well, then you think now you have young people who are demoralized and directionless. Well, they're never taught anything about how to acquire a direction. We did a study. I used this program I developed called Future Authoring. We did a study where we had 3 studies, actually, where we had university students sit down essentially for 90 minutes. Right. 90 minutes, this was it. And write out a goal, a series of goals for their life, right? Who could they be in 5 years across 7 important dimensions of their life? And where might they be that would be terrible if they didn't get their act together? We dropped their dropout rate 50% and raised their grade point average by 35%. 3 separate studies. So that's all you have to do if you want to motivate young people, is to teach them a bit of visionary discipline and encourage it. And we do the opposite of that. Plus, we terrify them. Trigger warnings. We tell them that everything's dangerous. We tell them
the Earth is burning up.
Well, there's that too. And
right.
We're headed for the apocalypse. And your ambition is making it worse.
Which I think the pandemic is so interesting on that, is because I think adults too said to themselves, most of the population was forced to put their life on pause and just said, slow down, stop, go home. No, we're making you go home. So not me, I was lucky enough to keep working, but I had to work remotely. Everyone's life changed. And people took a deep breath and they said, why am I in this job? Why is it necessary for me to do this? If life does stop, nothing will change. It seems like our population got off the treadmill and said, why get back on? and they're having trouble getting back on. When they get back on, they're not as motivated because they don't know why they're doing it. And you said to me in the break on Fox and Friends this weekend, it's because they don't have goals. They don't have a vision. If you have a vision, that leads to happiness. Why? Because you have a mission. You have a direction. Because you know what you want the end game to be. And that's back to your 15 minutes. You put that 15 minutes and you find out what your end game is. Don't tell me you don't know. Work on it.
Well, no, it does two things. Having a goal, well, if you have a goal and it's a collective goal, that unites people. So a collective vision is what unites people, because then everyone is heading in the same direction. Right. Everyone regards the same things as positive. Everybody uses the same structure to protect themselves from anxiety, and their emotions are aligned. So a goal, a united goal, a collective goal is what unites us. All right. Then on the individual front, if you have a goal and you see yourself taking steps towards it, that is what produces positive emotion and positive motivation, that enthusiastic desire to get up and go. And it also stops anxiety, because you either have a goal or you're fragmented. If you're fragmented, you don't know which direction to go in. That gives you too many directions. That makes you anxious. That's what anxiety signifies.
Paralysis. I don't even know where to go.
Right.
I'm out.
Right.
I'm out.
Yeah.
And I think that what you just said with that 15 minutes is so important, because especially with teenagers, just in college, just graduate, I don't really know what I want to do. What do you want to do? Well, it's fine to know that, but you got to take action to solve that. To do that, you got to go take action to go find out. What does Dr. Jordan Peterson do? Why does he seem so fulfilled? What about the guy down the block that owns a garage? Why does he seem happy every day? Well, he always wanted to be his own business, call his own shots. He wanted to help people. But you have to go work at finding out what is effective. I think you have an obligation to make the most out of life, and I think people get the wrong definition on happiness. What is happiness? Happiness is not high-fiving and necessarily smiling. It's having a mission.
Well, it's also not the gratification of immediate desire. Like, there's actually two forms of positive emotion. There's the emotion that you feel, let's say, after having a good meal, after a Thanksgiving dinner. And that's just satiation. Okay, but satiation puts you to sleep. Right now, it's pleasant because you don't need anything, but it isn't motivating. Motivation comes in a pursuit. You have to be pursuing a goal, and so then you have to figure out what your goal is. It's not optional. You know, the other thing for people to think about is, well, you know, you might say, well, I'm the sort of person that doesn't plan. It's like, well, that's because you're afraid. That's part of the reason, and you should overcome that. But it's also the case that if you don't have your plan, someone else has a plan for you. And whatever responsibility you abdicate will be taken up by tyrants, and whatever direction you don't provide for yourself will be provided by other people who don't have your best interest in mind. That's how it works.
And that's how smart he is. More from Dr. Jordan Peterson. He loves being challenged, loves taking questions. I also will say, I did notice when he was on Fox and Friends, I saw people come out of our building. A lot of young men in their 20s just had to meet him. They were starstruck. And listen, there's a lot of celebrities that come through here. Not like NBC, the Today Show. That's more their breadbasket. But no, I never saw that type of reaction. People just in awe. And I asked him at the end of our interview, I said, where are you going now? He goes, well, believe it or not, I'm booked in the Middle East. I've never been there. I said, how? He goes, I had no idea. I have supporters and fans in the Middle East. But we got these venues all sold out already. Think about that.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.